this video, we're going to go over how to find the product of radicals, or in other words, how to multiply square roots together. Let's do it. So in general, the rule is if you have the square root of a times the same square root sign of b, that is the same as the square root of a times b. Think of the square roots as powers that are the same, right? So we can multiply those bases if the powers are the same. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, like if I had 3 squared and 2 squared, that would be the same as 2 times 3 squared. Okay, so using that rule, we're going to now simplify these problems, but I do one thing a little bit different. I don't just multiply the numbers and the radicals first. I like to either simplify down the square root nicely or break it down and see what perfect squares live inside. I'll show you what I mean. If you prefer, you can just go ahead and multiply right away, but it makes the numbers bigger. So here's what I do. First, I multiply 3 by 5. They're on the outside, they're going to be 15. And then I consider the square root of 2 times the square root of 8. The square root of 8 can be broken down into 2 times the square root of 2. That's because the square root of 4 times the square root of 2 is 8. And if you're looking at that saying, I have no idea how we got from the square root of 8 to 2 root 2, please watch earlier videos on how to simplify square roots. Okay, so now from here, this makes life a lot easier. 2 times 15 can now be multiplied because really what's happening is all these numbers are multiplied. And whether I multiply 2 by 15 before I multiply root 2 or multiply it in the middle, doesn't matter. That order of multiplication is commutative, right? So 2 times 15 is 30. And that leaves me with root 2 times root 2. Well, what's the square root of 2 times the square root of 2? 4. The square root of 4 is 2. So I get 30 times 2, which is equal to 60. Oh, nice. Now you could also have done it like this. You could have done it as 3 times 5 times the square root of 16. And the square root of 16 is 4. And 4 times 5 is 20 times 3 is 60. In this case, that's a little quicker. Let me show you where that's not quicker. 2 root 7 times root 35. If you multiplied 7 by 35 right away, that becomes a massive number. I think it's 245 off the top of my head. I don't want to figure out what the biggest perfect square is that goes into 245. Here's what I can do. I notice that the numbers will be big when I multiply. And so I don't use the method of multiplying first. I break this down into root 7 and root 5. There's no perfect squares that go into 35, but I notice that root 7 goes into 35, which is the same as that. Now we have good news. The square root of 7 times the square root of 7 is root 49. The square root of 49 is 7 times 2 is 14 times the square root of 5. Nice, really nice. Okay, let's keep rolling. Same thing here. I can do 2 times 5, might as well do that. And then I have the square root of 3 times the square root of 6. You can certainly multiply those together. Get the square root of 18 and simplify it. Or notice that the square root of 6 can be broken into the square root of 3 times the square root of 2, which is the same factor as that 3. Root 3 times root 3 is root 9. And the square root of 9 is 3. Times 10 is 30. Times the square root of 2. Nice. So, more of the story here, guys, when you're multiplying, once you're ready to multiply, you multiply numbers inside the radical and multiply the numbers outside the radical. Numbers that are inside the square root never get multiplied by numbers outside the square root because they're raised to different powers. This last one, number 4. Okay, you could multiply 8 by 12, but I'm going to suggest that you reduce each of these into simplest radical form. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Then you're left with 8. 8 gets reduced down to root 4 times root 2, which is 2 root 2. Again, I'm going quickly with that. If you need to see how that is done, watch an earlier video on how to reduce root 8. So 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Root 8 is 2 root 2. Root 12 is root 4 times root 3, which is 2 root 3. Now we multiply everything outside and inside. Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12, times 2 is negative 24. Root 2 times root 3 is the square root of 6. It's in simplest radical form because 6 has no factors that are perfect squares inside of it. So we're done. Sweet! See you in the next video where we're going to involve variables in this mix. Can't wait.